Welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, and today I'm talking about the Wands suit. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. The best way to support the podcast right now is to listen daily, rate, review, and to follow or subscribe in your chosen podcast app. The next best way is to check out my Patreon. Supporting me there gets you early access to upcoming podcast episode topics, digital downloads I've created, and monthly tarot hangouts. The link is in the show notes to check that out, and you can always go to my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot for all the latest information related to the podcast and to find images of the cards I pull on each episode. If you're local to the greater Puget Sound area, I'd love to see you at one of my Let's Talk Tarot meetup group events, where we all bring some of our favorite decks and play around with tarot and oracle decks together. Our next event is on February 24th at 5 p.m. at the Bonnie Lake Library. We'll be working on creating our own tarot cards. I'll bring all the supplies and guide you through the magical process. You can use the meetup link to check out further details on the event and RSVP. All right, so welcome to season 3 of the podcast. In the first season, I introduced tarot. We're talking about oracle versus tarot cards, myths of tarot, how to find a deck, reading for yourself versus others, and much more. In season 2, I went through the first 13 cards of the Major Arcana, one per episode, and now we're into season 3, where I went through the final 9 cards in the Major Arcana and then talking about each suit. So like I said, since I finished going through all the Major Arcana cards, the next 4 episodes will be about the 4 suits, and today I'm talking about the suit of Wands. So in the Wands suit, they're commonly depicted as like a magical wand, sometimes as wood or sticks in the imagery. In the Anima Mundi deck that I have, there's ones that show, like they look a lot more like branches, I would say. They usually have like side branches off of them, so it's a very like natural looking stick or wand. One of the cards has it's the 3 of Wands, so it has 3 sort of sticks like vertically, and then they have little flowers on the ends of them even, so sort of like looking a lot more like a tree. And then for the King of Wands, in the Anima Mundi deck, it shows like an image of a coyote maybe, or a fox, or a wolf, and then there's like a wand horizontally above at the top. So it's like the creature is not necessarily interacting with the wand in the image, but it is on there. And the Goddess of Love tarot deck by Gabby Herstick. She depicts the wands like roses, so again, sort of looks like branch-like, but she utilizes the branches. So on the Ace of Wands, it's like a single branch with a rose on top, and then a couple of different like branches off of it with leaves. And then the Eight of Wands, it shows like 8 different roses that are all like shooting out from the middle part of each other. So it's like as if you had 8 stems of roses and you laid them out together in almost like a star looking image. And again, oftentimes in these imagery, the wands are sort of like superimposed on top of other images. But that's kind of what it often looks like. Some of the other suits vary depending on interpretation, but the wands, I would say, generally look fairly similar. It's like a stick. Sometimes it's just a single one, or sometimes it's branching. I did think it was interesting. I looked in my Fearless Tarot book by Elia Adam, How to Give a Positive Reading in Any Situation. And they talked about that. So each of the 4 suits, swords, cups, pentacles, and wands, they're usually associated with an element, so air, water, earth, and fire. And in the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, swords are associated with air and wands are associated with fire. However, different deck creators are more comfortable with wands being associated with air and swords with fire. And this is the one that I always get mixed up, and now I sort of know why, is because different decks associate them differently. Um, the author says, I think this makes sense since wands derive from tree branches that blow in the wind, and swords are forged in fire. However, for the book that they're using, like they follow the imagery created by Waite and Smith, and they view swords as air and wands as a fire element. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. So you might, in different decks, they might associate them differently. And generally, pentacles are earth and cups are water. Those seem to be pretty standard, but the other ones are a little different each time. So they talk about the element of fire is linked to the suit of wands. Like I said, that's the correspondence they use in their book. Wands are associated with ambition, creativity, boldness, dynamism, vitality, growth, awakenings, brilliance, charisma, action, movement, ego, and actions that must be taken quickly. Wands reveal areas of personal growth and opportunity, and when wands appear in a reading, they often reveal what you are striving for. The little leaves sprouting on each of the wands symbolize personal growth and progress. Um, so that is sort of one interpretation of wands there. And like I said, I talked about the different decks that I have. In the Library of Esoterica tarot book by Toshin, they have a whole section on the minor arcana, and then they go through, they talk about what each number usually symbolizes. So I'm going to read a little bit of that as well, since we're just getting started into talking about the suits. So they say, well, the major arcana dominate the tarot story with their figurative, archetypal power. The minor arcana subtly fill the spaces between, exploring our personal narratives with more nuanced detail and emotional depth. In the standard 78 card tarot deck, there are 56 minor arcana cards, which are divided into 4 suits, best known by the names Cups, Wands, Swords, and Pentacles. In traditional tarot, each of the suits represents one of the 4 natural elements. So they state cups are water, wands with fire, swords represent air, and pentacles earth. The meanings extend to the inner self as well as the outer world, with cups focused on emotions of the heart, wands, the belief system of the soul, swords, the realm of the rational mind, and pentacles, the body, senses, and material world. So we have 4 suits. We have the Major Arcana, 21 cards. Then we have 4 suits, just like a traditional playing deck of cards. And then they say within each suit there's 10 pip cards, is the phrasing they use. I would call them like number cards, probably, identified by number. And it goes ace through 10, ace being 1, and then 2 through 10. And then there's 4 court cards, usually page, knight, queen, king, ordered sort of hierarchically. And then some contemporary decks rename them daughter, son, mother, father, or I know in the Goddess of Love tarot deck, she changes them all to be more feminine words or depictions. So she talks about like witch, mother, crone, uses language like that. The minor arcana are the segment of the tarot that feels perhaps the most familiar and approachable, right? A lot of us have played with card decks before and played games with them. So having 4 suits and having the ace through 10 and then the court cards, like that feels pretty familiar. But the cards also possess an eloquence and resonance that may not be apparent upon first glance. Just like in the major arcana, the minor cards are based on a system created over centuries, and they're a mix of Kabbalistic mysticism, Hermetic thought, Greek mythology, and also numerology, right? So that's part of why when we went through the major arcana cards, each of the major arcana cards has a number associated with it, but it was important to talk about the numerology. Within the minor arcana, numerological association is key to understanding the deeper symbology of each card. Depending on the era of the deck and the school of thought or artistic intent behind its creation, there may be minor variations in the naming and numbering. However, most pip cards are organized to reflect the following numerological associations. And then they go on to go through the associations I'm gonna talk about those more later when we start exploring like every card in the Minor Arcana. Right now, I'm just gonna focus on broadly each of the four suits to sort of wrap up this season. Um, and then, perhaps in a later season, I'll spend like a whole season per suit and go through each of the cards there. So, qualities associated with the wands are energy, motivation, passion. Again, the wands. So, with the four suits, they all correspond to different elements, which also correspond to zodiac signs. So, there's like um, three signs associated with wands, or like the fire energy, which are Leo, Sagittarius, and Aries. And they talk about, again, in the Toshin book, that wands are the suit of desire and yearning, dreams, manifestation. That's sort of like fiery energy, like sparks, right? Like creation, starting new things. It's aligned with the element of fire. They symbolize the flames of sexuality, willpower, primal energy. This is the suit of the ego, of masculine determination and ambition without bonds. And it also says that in a deck of playing cards, that wands correspond to clubs, which I don't think I had sort of put together before. So more information from the Fearless Tarot book by Elliot Adam. They talk about the suit of wands as being about your growth, inspiration, and ambition. The wand suit represents inspiration, aspiration, and transformation. The suit reveals your ambition and motivates you towards achievements. When you look at the cards of the suit, you can see budding leaves sprouting from the staves. Wands represent growth. Each of the court cards in the wand suit reveals a charismatic figure. They each have a strong belief in their abilities. Wands are potent symbols for the element of fire. Fire transforms everything it touches. It burns away the old and can melt even the hardest metal into a new form. Without fire, there would be no civilization or technological advances. Wands in a reading are immensely transformative. When wands cluster around other cards in a reading, they reveal which area of your life is growing or transforming. The wand suit can also light a proverbial fire under your behind to get you to grow. When a multitude of wands cards appear, expect events to speed up. Again, think of like a spark igniting a fire, right? It can take off very quickly. Wands signify swift movement, energy, passion, and excitement. They can also reveal if there's more improvement to be done. This suit often represents youth and newness, and they can also signify talent. They reveal how to use your personal abilities to strive for a better life. Look at the other cards that appear around wand cards to give you a clue as to where your greatest talents and potential can be expressed. Finally, wands are confident. They rekindle your courage and remind you to have faith in yourself. In the Goddess of Love Tarot deck by Gabriela Herstick and Julia Platesco, she talks about that the wands, that each suit has its own vibration that leads to a different facet of the goddess, right? Again, this is a Goddess of Love Tarot deck. So the wands guide you to the sexual and erotic magic of the divine feminine and ask you to embody this in your own relationship with sex magic. The wands are the suit of will, desire, and passion, and they represent that which drives you to transform your surroundings as represented by the rose, the sacred embodiment of love. Roses are connected to Isis, Mary Magdalene, Venus, Aphrodite, Inanna, and Babylon, among others, and the rose can be a euphemism for the vagina or womb. Roses unfurl following the Fibonacci spiral, making them one of the highest vibrational flowers. Their thorns can be used for protection magic and can pierce like swords, and they are great teachers when it comes to boundaries. The wands teach you to use the potential of orgasm and energetic points to direct and transform your being. They are sex magic and asking you to align your heart, body, mind, and spirit with the current of the divine erotic. All right, so let's dive in and see what the cards have to say today. And the way that I'm going to utilize my tarot card pull today is that I'm going to be thinking about where can we embody the wand's energy in our life? What messages does spirit or the universe have for us around wands or that creative, that fire energy? And what can we learn from that? So I'm pulling from the Therapist Who Tarot deck by Rebecca Bloom and Drea Bloom. And I pulled the King of Spirals, which the word associated with this on this card is disciplined. And on this deck, there's no deck guidebook with it, but there are questions on the back of the card. So I'm going to read the questions and sort of see what I think that has to do with wands today. So it talks about, what risk is it finally time to take? How would you describe your relationship with fear? And what is it that you really want to do and why? This gives me very like action, wands, fire energy, right? Like we have the risk level, right? Which again, if you think of fire, whenever you utilize fire, right, it's important to do it safely and that there is risk that comes along with it, right? That if fire gets out of control, it can literally burn everything, and it can be painful, right? I think also like thinking about fear, right, as if, okay, the wand's energy is like, what things do you fear, like especially maybe that might get out of control? I think of sometimes like maybe my own experience or other people's experience with overwhelm of emotions, like feeling fear about, oh, if I start to feel that emotion, if I really dig into it and process it, it's going to take over, right? I'm going to be sucked into it. The fire is going to burn everything down, and then I'll have nothing left of this fear. And so that's sort of what's coming up for me right now. And then what is it that you really want to do and why? Again, the wands are all about that spark, right? That maybe you have an idea of something and you really want to do it. You have no idea how it's going to happen. Maybe it seems wild or out there, or you'd have to quit your job, or you'd have to move across the country. But what is it that you really want to do? And like center in on that why. Like what is fueling you, right? Like if we think again of wands as fire, what's fueling your fire right now? And maybe it's just something small. Maybe it's right, you're browsing something on your free time at work, and you're like, oh man, I really wish I could do that. I just feel like this card is calling you to say, like, what is it that you really want to do, right? What if you had the space, time, capacity to do that? What might it look like, right? Like flesh out that vision a little bit more. It doesn't mean that you have to take the step right now, right? Like if you have fear around it or this level of like, ooh, that would be really risky, right? Again, maybe you have to quit a full-time job and start something new. I'm not sure why jobs are coming up to me right now, but that's what's coming to mind. And it can feel like a really big risk, especially when maybe other things in the world or your life feel unstable or unpredictable. So it's I feel like this card's asking us to explore that fear and that risk and the vision and sort of what is that spark that really excites you right now. All right. So that's where I'm going to wrap it up for today. Links for the tarot decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast will come out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.